good news is for everyone in D grade, you'll all be in the finals, which means I get more sausages. So does Jodie, who was telling me earlier, where are the bangers? I'm hungry. Chanel just sitting in Michelle's blind spot, forcing her to look around on the inside. It's an awkward way to look. And she's giving herself a nice little bit of racing distance there, hanging off about a metre or two off the back. Much better than being pinned right onto the wheel. A bit of wind, Michelle taking some height. And a move comes from Chanel down into the lane. And she's kicked pretty early. Michelle having to respond. And she's rolled the dice, the young lady, and that's a great thing to see. Out of the saddle, pedalling hard. Michelle's got to make the pass, and that's a hard thing to do at this track. Chanel holding her off down the back straight. Michelle pushing a bigger gear, and you can see the difference in cadence as she comes around the bend. Looks like she's going to have a little bit too much speed for Chanel, so Michelle didn't qualify perhaps as well as she might have. But she's going to roll around the outside, but a great move there. Chanel really rolled the dice and had a go. Sam's favour. Sam on the small gear. Chloe also on a small gear, but a slightly bigger gear than Sam. She's on 82, I think, and he's on 77. He's got under 15 gearing, and Chloe's running an 82 inch. Although she could run bigger, she's under 19 rider. This is Chloe's second ever bit of racing. Sam really close to walking pace. Remember the rules. Sam keeping a very close eye there on Chloe. Chloe on the red bike, Sam on the green one. We're calling her Cyclone Chloe now. She doesn't seem to mind too much. Give her a pat on the back later, she's got sunburn. Lap and a half now to go. And you can see Sam's got himself a pretty good position on that bike. He's got nice low in the front end. Chloe, we still need to keep tweaking the position on the bike that she's on. We've been lucky with the weather. It hasn't rained on us after an early spat a little bit earlier before qualifying started. That wind hasn't impacted too much on what we've done, apart from making everyone slow. That's my excuse, and I'm going to stick to it forever. Sam makes the move now. Chloe responds about 380 metres out. Sam's jumped off, and Chloe trying very hard to catch him. She's got to get down into the draft, and she does as Sam lifts through the bend. You can see the difference in cadence with the two riders on the two different gears. Sam revving like a sewing machine. Chloe needs to get down into that draft if she's going to catch him. It looks like Sam might just hold her off. He's got a good jump, this young man. And he was a little bit quicker in qualifying as well. Chloe's still chasing hard, but Sam's going to take that. A pursuit. Yuck. Anyway, as well as a pursuit, there was also a kilo, or in his case I think it's 750, and a flying 200, and a scratch race, and a points race. Was it a scratch race? Yeah, it was. So 5 races he did yesterday. He'd be pretty tired from that. David, Johnny Lewis, a fair bit fresher, and a few years more experience. David hops out of the saddle. Johnny hops out of the saddle to control the pace. Paul just getting a little bit under his wheel there. It's a dangerous place to be. He's pretty close, and now he hops out of the saddle, maybe trying to give himself a little bit of height. But John responding. Bell rings. 307 metres to go. Johnny just a little bit more modelling around on the track, doing a reasonably good job of controlling and owning the lane, forcing Paul to have to go the long way around him every time. He's still not committed to the sprint, so he can come out of the lane. Once the sprint starts, it's pretty obvious, and there it goes. Now John makes the move down into the lane, but Paul, with a fair bit of power to come around the outside, can John respond and keep the speed up high? It looks at the moment like Paul may just get the fling out of the bend and hold Johnny and McMahon to get just past John. And with that extra speed that he had, Paul takes it in the end. Both riders committed sprinters. It'll be interesting to see how they play this game. Tilly with about 6 months of training under her belt, Britt with about 12 months. At the moment, just content for Britt, is quite content just to hold Tilly up there on the hip as she comes through turn 2. Tilly, bit of an acceleration. Britt responds, watching patiently. Pops up behind her into the draft. Tilly's gone early. It's 3 times she's done that today. These are going to start to pay. Britt gives herself a little bit of distance and just hangs off. As Tilly commits to the sprint. Brett again controlling that distance. She's just laying off a little bit to give herself room to come around. Now she starts to accelerate into the slipstream, coming through the bend and into the headwind. Brett goes straight past Tilly, drops down into the lane and shows her a clean pair of heels. Tilly made the move, gave herself a good chance, but Brett just a little bit too quick. Dave dropping down underneath Ben and taking the lead off him, or at least taking the inside running. Qualifying times favoured Ben by about a second, but don't count on that. Again, David deceptively quick when he wants to be. So B and A grade guys, you need to be in the chute, you need to be ready to go, or I'll fine you a sausage. And that will suck. Imagine not having free sausages. David moves back in front of Ben. A lap and a half to go. Ben starting to wind up around the outside using that subtle acceleration you can get through the bend. It's unusual for David. He's not normally one to leave the sprint fairly late and the bell rings. Still nothing happening now. David jumps out of the saddle, Ben, seated acceleration response. Dropping down into the lane. David has ownership of lane. Look at the wobble in his front end there. Ben's kicked clear. David now with the advantage of the slipstream if he can get up into it. Looks like Ben may have a bit too much speed. And David looks perhaps a little under-geared as he's revving pretty quickly but not able to keep up with Ben's effort, and Ben in the end will coast over the line for a fairly convincing win. So Sam moving up and crowding Hasselhoff. He did the same thing against Dino, and Dino just leaned on him and pushed him back down. Now Sam needs to remember he's got to go faster than walking pace. Otherwise the whistle will blow and the race will restart. Sam just putting a bit of pressure there on David. David not particularly disturbed by this. Sam in the blue and white Carnegie Caulfield skin suit, and David in white and black and all sorts of other stuff, with David with the Casco on his head. And putting a bit more pressure on David. Again, I think he wants to control when the jump occurs in this race. As they come into turn 3, with a lap and a half to go. The pace still pedestrian, literally. As they amble around the bend. No change in position for 3/4 of a lap. Now, is this going to turn into a game of chicken, or will we see a gradual increase in pace? They've got about 450 metres now to go, or 400 metres I should say. Sam up and down. David content just to stay high. Sam doing a pretty good job of watching. The bell rings, we don't get the reflex jump that we often do. Again, Sam being very attentive, not giving David much room at all. He does have to give him room to get through. And with less than 300 metres now to go, Sam still pressing David high up against the fence. He's been practising this move a lot throughout the rounds. Hasn't yet been terribly successful. Now he makes a move down the lane, but David immediately responds to it. Sam's kicked off, and David with a chase to do. He's got himself a good bit of racing distance now. Sam jumping off. David with about 3 metres to bridge. Coming up the back straight, can Sam hold to the lane as David comes up onto his wheel? David with a lot more speed as he comes into the draft. Sam this time holds the lane quite nicely. It's going to be a good dash to the line, and Sam by a... And now we're live. We'll see how this one pans out. David just rolling over the top of Sam at the moment. Sam content to let him do it. And popping up behind him. It's perfectly legit. Sam didn't have to go slower than walking pace to force David to leave. David looked like he wanted it. And it is permissible to take the lead off the other rider. They're not allowed to force you to do it in the first half lap. Just for those of you curious to know about the rules. David's ducking and diving around a little bit. Just Sam content just to follow him, and now leave himself with a bit of height. David goes up, Sam goes higher. Coming around now, they'll get the bell. Sam looking for an opportunity perhaps to duck underneath as David starts to wind it. Sam at this point content to wait for the move as David makes the dash down into the sprinter's lane. Sam now with the chase to do into the slipstream. And Sam running hard at David's back wheel. This is where the ability to ride the corner becomes very important. As they come out of the bend, Sam and David side by side up the lane, and Sam takes it by a like. Robert Forsterman of Bensdale, the Riviera enforcer. I heard that Carnegie got robbed this morning by a guy with a hammer at Glenvale. Good luck doing that with a bunch of sprinters. A hammer, is that all you've got? Skells made a good move up the back straight and forced Ben to respond and chase. Kel's going to make this a long one. He went from about 600 metres out. And Ben with a pretty big gear, and he looks pretty comfortable at the moment, sitting in Kel's draft as they come round through turn 1, turn 2. Now Ben hits the gas, and he'll make the pass up the back straight. But Kel has a second kick. Can he hold him off? And Ben with a bit too much speed. And we saw that in qualifying. And Ben will end up comfortably taking that one. Hydra Cups from Isaiah Ning, who's currently over in Manchester racing in the World Cup, and also a Kinetic Trainer is the series aggregate prize. They're provided for us by Steve Hassett's Foundation Technologies, who's been our sponsor for this year. Gave us a wad of cash to spend on loot, and we're tremendously grateful to that. So thank you very much, Steve Hassett. We enormously appreciate your contribution to the sport. Steve also supports a lot of women's cycling in particular, who is a major sponsor of the Eildon Women and Juniors Tour, as David Karoknai has a little bit of a faux kick just to see if Luke would respond. Luke's having a bit of a purple patch today. He's won a lot of races. He's doing very well. He's the only one in A grade to be undefeated so far. He'll want to maintain that. David will be pretty keen to get some runs on the board. You get the bell, still no move. Bit of a game of chicken. David a little bit lost where Luke was there for a second. Now when you come up to this sort of game here, so usually the first rider who makes the move, who takes it. In this case it is David who made the jump. Luke with the chase to do up the back straight. Luke with a bit more power into the headwind up the back straight. Can he make the pass around David as they come around through turn 4? Luke pressing up onto David's wheel. David committed to the sprint, and David takes that one by easy. Connor's got the BT. Connor's got the Easterns, and Jared has the BT handlebars. That's how we'll tell them apart. Nothing to do with the helmets. They're both white. Connor picking the pace up a little bit. Jared content to sit down in the lane and drive it, opening up a little bit of a gap. Last time these two raced was quite an interesting little tussle. Connor pulled down off the bank as Jared watching him closely, keeping the pace high, trying to nullify the jump. Jared now makes the room. Connor with the chasing to do. Connor still out of the saddle. Jared holding up the gap, but Connor was going to have the advantage of the run into the slipstream, into the headwind, and steps out around Jared through the bend. Connor with a bit too much speed as he comes up the back straight, drops down into the lane, eventually drops down into the lane, will eventually drop down into the lane. At some point he's going to drop down into the lane. Now he drops down into the lane, and Connor's global